One question that has served me tremendously well in all the things that I create creatively is how can I keep momentum going, right? And the reason I ask this is because I, like you and many other creatives, especially on the indie side of things, right? We lack resources, we lack time, we lack funding, all kinds of different things. And when faced with those things, it can be debilitating and whatnot to try to figure out of like how to get a project going. And so what I always ask myself is, how can I just keep any momentum going in the smallest of ways, right? How can I just keep pushing this project inch by inch closer to the finish line, right? In whatever capacity that I can. And let me kind of give you a specific example of this, right? So, making a movie, like most art forms, is expensive, but filmmaking especially, and it's so collaborative that, you need to hire other people, actors and so forth to be part of the project, that can be tough, right? It's one of the mediums that's kind of out of your hands, right? And so when you're developing a project, you would, let's say, if you want to get the funding from especially a studio, let's say you would want a proof of concept, a pitch deck, a script, and, as many materials as you can to showcase to them like, hey, this is what the project would be, here's why it would be viable, and so forth. Okay, well, a proof of concept costs money, right? Doing a pitch deck, you can keep it kind of contained, but still cost money if you're not designing it yourself, right? And so, okay, you as the filmmaker, well, what can you control? The script, right? That's you writing and making the story as good as it can be, right? Okay, so work on that, keep polishing it up, and so forth, and to the extent that you can, submit it to film competitions, submit it to grants and stuff like that, and just try to build that momentum, right? Part of this philosophy is to not overwhelm yourself. Like, what is the smallest action that you can take that gets you just a small step forward to your overall goal, right? And, part of it is also being able to pivot as needed. Maybe through this, let's say, just continuing with the example that you write the script, people love it, but, it would just be too costly, so no studio wants to take it at the moment and so forth. And I say at the moment because that's also part of it. Nothing's forever, right? How many stories do you hear of projects, taking 20 years to develop and stuff like that? Like, it's not unheard of. But through this process, as people get to really like your script and stuff like that, it opens the door towards other opportunities, right? So it's also being open to that. And that's part of that momentum building, is seeing what comes of it, right? Seeing the avenues that could be available to you at this particular moment, that in itself, by building from one project to the next, right, in terms of the larger view, that will open more doors for bigger and better things as you go along, right? And just as kind of like a tangent tip to all of this, I always like to be declarative of things. And what I mean by that is, just kind of letting people know in your life that, hey, I am working on this. This is what I'm building towards. And by doing so, now, in a sense, you put people on alert to potentially help you, right? Because no one knows to want to help you or how they can connect the dots for you if they don't know. It's akin to, if I tell you to look around the room, okay, you've looked around the room and I tell you, how many things did you remember that were red? You might remember some, probably not a lot. Now, if I tell you specifically, like, hey, look around the room and identify all the red objects. Now, when you look, all of a sudden, you're looking everywhere, and even the things that aren't quite necessarily like red, you're looking, you're like, okay, well, that's close enough, and you're justifying and you're finding ways to link it up, right? This is kind of how people operate in general. And so by being declarative that, hey, I'm working on X, Y, and Z, all of a sudden people can start to work in your favor in that way. And that's part of that momentum building. So that's how I approach a lot of projects, especially in the early stages, just to, start the snowball effect and whatnot. I hope it truly does help you to keep this little bit in mind, especially as you are starting a brand new project, especially if you are at the beginnings of your artistic career. So I truly do hope that it helps you as it has helped me.